So you either, you know, you either treat the wine as gently as possible so that you're not getting a lot of tannin out of it. You ferment at a lower temperature so you don't get quite as much extraction either. I mean, nowadays with very commercial wines, they'll choose the yeast that they use very carefully because certain yeasts are going to also give you a certain flavour profile.
If it's organic, would it have more yeast than a non-organic wine? Would it be able to cultivate it itself better?
As Ben pointed out earlier, with organic wines, the process is only regulated in the vineyard. What you do in the winery, there's, as of today, no regulation. So you can, with organic wines, use yeast that you buy in a packet. Having said that, certainly most of the producers we stock, who are very into doing things as naturally as possible, only use the natural yeasts, which live.
I think also it's important to say that when you talk about yeast, and it's not that they give flavours, it's just that they allow the grape to develop certain flavours through the process of fermentation. And most organic producers who have spent all that time in the vineyard creating the best fruit they possibly can use either for white wine a champagne yeast, which actually gives which is the champagne yeast you put to secondary ferment, which gives incredibly clean, it doesn't impart any flavour at all to the juice. It just helps to get the fermentation started, and then the local, it's basically like they're the party starters. And then all the local yeast come to the party and start fermenting. And it's brilliant. The whole process is brilliant. In fact, there's a diagram, which I won't draw now, later, afterwards. I'll draw you a diagram of how yeast works.
Maybe the family tree and the love children.
Because it populates and then it goes, woohoo! And then it goes, yeah! And you can't see that at home, but I tell you, it's brilliant.
Can you tell me, this is a 2006. I mean, how important is it? Because some of the wines we've tasted today and some of the other clips didn't have a year on them. Is it going to make a difference if I'm buying a 2005 Merlot or a 2007 Merlot? Or like, how would I know what to buy and what to look for?
Well, I mean, you'd have to have some understanding of what happened in the growing season in those years. I mean, part of what we try and do here is we understand that most people really don't want to spend their lives on the internet trying to figure out how 2006 was different to 2007. So, because there is vintage variation, much less so in southern France than in places like Burgundy and Bordeaux, but there is, particularly these days when weather has gone a bit insane. We will delist something we'll take it off the shelves. We won't list it for that vintage if the vintage isn't quite good enough. But really, you have to trust the place you're buying the wine, Kylie, or you have to go and sit on the internet and do your own research.
Or come and buy it from somewhere like Green and Blues where they know exactly what they're talking about.
The counter argument to that is, of course, if you're making a commercial product and it's a brand, that what a lot of people will do, especially in South Africa or Australia, is they won't have any vineyards, so they'll just source fruit or grapes from vineyards one year. If that's the best fruit that year from Swartland, then they'll buy it there, and then next year they'll buy it from Stellenbosch, and then they'll just go and buy the fruit from the best possible place they can, bring it back to the winery, make the wine, and every year they can make a consistent product.
Do they have to put that on the label?
No, they just can't call it. They can't just call it Swartland or whatever. They have to call it. In South Africa's case, they probably call it Western Cape. Wow. But it just means that you can make every year a consistent product from. Whereas in France people tend to buy from a grower all the time, or they have their own vineyard, so it's very much you're reliant on the weather and your little patch of vineyard. In South Africa and Western Australia, and Australia in general actually, and to a certain extent New Zealand, although not quite so much, they buy around so they can actually hedge their bets. Although it's not necessarily...
That does sort of remove the concept of, a wine tasting of where it's from, as well as the grape variety. And that absolutely is a viable approach, and it's one a lot of people use.
It's a commercial way, and that's the other way. That's the other route, and it's not necessarily the best route, although I couldn't possibly comment.
Well, it's certainly not the green and blue route, but that is definitely, because if you do need, if you're a producer who couldn't possibly say to a supermarket, sorry, next year we only have half of what we had this year and it's not that good, then you have to go down that route because...
What you're really inferring is it's a business, not a wine.
Absolutely.
So this chap, I'm getting cherries, and more cherries. Is that accurate?
Sort of
plums?
I mean, there's often something on proper Merlot that's really quite smoky or like bitter chocolate or dark coffee, espresso type thing, and I think you can definitely find that. On the nose, not so much, but on the palate, there's definitely a sort of dark chocolate edge to it.
and also the tannins are ripe, but they're not aggressive, they're not really assertive, but they're certainly there.
They are there.
I mean,
aren't
it's
they?
weird.
Yeah.
They're integrated into the fruit.
Yes.
It's like the fruit is like a sort of lovely fur coat around the lovely structured
Yes,
tannins.
exactly.
Wow. Well, on that lovely visualization of fur coats worn by lovely tannins, cheers. Another
Cheers.
lovely wine. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
Good. No
Yeah.
problem.
Great wine. Awesome.
Fantastic.
I might go and visit them actually, because
Oh, you
I live in
should.
France.
Yes.